thinking of a classic diner, one thing always stands out. Those 3 bright squeeze bottles with their delicious condiments. We've already covered the mustard, but now it's time for the white one. Mayonnaise. Hello my friends and fellow Polonians, welcome back to Apaulo Diner. I'm your host Apaulo Jupiter, and today we're diving into the world of silky, flavorful mayonnaise. I mean, what would crispy fries or creamy coleslaw be without that rich, mouth-watering mayo magic? I can't even imagine. And the best part, you can absolutely make it yourself at home. No fancy equipment, no long list of ingredients, just pure vintage goodness. So let's whip up a real diner-style mayo, just like they did in the 50s. Welcome to Apaulo Diner. Let's get started. What you'll need for about 250 milliliters or roughly 1 cup of my ideal classic 50s style mayonnaise. We're starting with 3 egg yolks, and make sure they're at room temperature. That's actually pretty important because cold yolks just don't emulsify as well. And we don't want a mayo disaster on our hands. The same goes for all the other ingredients. Mayonnaise is a bit picky when it comes to temperature. If your ingredients are too different in temperature, your mayo is way more likely to break. So make sure everything is at a similar temperature. I'm using 3 yolks instead of 2, like in many recipes, because it gives you a richer texture and brings more lecithin to the game, which is the key ingredient responsible for the emulsification. Next up, 1 cup or 240 milliliters of soybean or safflower oil. These two were actually the standard in diners back in the day. But if you don't have soybean or safflower oil, another light vegetable oil works just as fine. The key is that it should have a neutral flavor because nobody wants their mayo tasting like a bottle of olive oil decided to crash the party. For acidity, we'll use 1 tablespoon of 50 milliliters of white vinegar, or if you like a little more complexity, go for half a tablespoon or 7.5 milliliters cider vinegar and half a tablespoon lemon juice. That mix gives it a slightly tangier, more balanced kick and is a real classic. That's actually the option I'll use today. To give it its signature depth, we'll need 1 teaspoon of dry mustard powder. That's another signature ingredient of real vintage mayonnaise. Nowadays, people often use ready-made mustard, but mustard powder really makes a difference in the flavor department. It blends more smoothly into the emulsion, giving the mayo a deeper, more rounded heat that builds subtly rather than hitting you all at once. If you still have leftover seeds from making your own mustard like we did in my mustard video, you can also grind them on the finest setting with your grinder. Then sift them to get rid of the shells. But be warned, freshly ground mustard seeds bring a bit more bite. Of course, we can't forget half a teaspoon of salt, because let's be honest, bland mayo is a crime. Then just a 1/4 teaspoon of sugar. It's optional, but trust me, it helps balance out the acidity. And for that little extra something, a pinch of white pepper, or black, if you don't mind tiny specks. If you want to go full vintage diner style, you can also add a pinch of MSG or a dash of Worcester sauce. It's like a secret handshake for your taste buds, just a little umami boost to round everything out. And yes, believe it or not, MSG was pretty common back then, but don't worry, if you leave it out, your mayo will still be just as delicious. And lastly, 1 tablespoon or 50 milliliters of warm water. This helps to keep the consistency just right, especially with the extra yolk in this recipe. Alright, now that we've got everything ready, let's whip up some magic. First, grab a bowl and whisk together yolks, mustard, vinegar, or vinegar and lemon juice in my case, salt, sugar, and white pepper. This step is crucial. It sets up the foundation for a perfect emulsion. Think of it as a little stretching before a workout. Now comes the fun and slightly nerve-wracking part, emulsifying the oil. Start very slowly, drop by drop, while whisking continuously like your life depends on it. If you go too fast, your mayo could break, and nobody wants a sad, separated mess. Back in the day, mayo was mostly whisked by hand, but if you want, you can also use a blender. Just make sure to start on a slow speed at the beginning. I'm gonna do it the old school way, by hand. And here the key is keeping a steady pace. You get a little workout on top of it. Once the mix starts to thicken up and looks more like mayo and less like a science experiment, you can gradually increase to a slow, steady stream. In my case, I have to set down the oil from time to time. I only have 2 hands. Keep whisking and you'll see it transform into the creamy, dreamy texture we're after. When it's nice and thick, whisk in the warm water to adjust the consistency. This keeps it smooth and spreadable instead of gloopy. Now it's time for a taste test. Amazing. I love the slight bite of the mustard. So, if yours needs a bit more salt, give it a tiny pinch. This one can take a little pinch as well. If yours has too much tang, a little bit of sugar works well. And if you want a little bit more depth to it, go with a pinch of MSG or a dash of Worcester sauce. I'm gonna go with the MSG. And we mix that up. Give it another shot. That's perfect. And that's it, my friends and fellow Polonians. A homemade silky vintage style mayo, just like they made it in the diners of the 50s. If you don't eat it all immediately, which, let's be honest, is a real possibility, store it in an airtight container or in one of those wonderful little squeeze bottles in the fridge. It'll keep for about a week, but fresh mayo is so good, I doubt it'll last that long. Now, whether you're slathering it on a burger, Dunkin' fries, or making the perfect potato salad, you've got yourself a real diner-style classic. And don't forget to pair it with its best friend, mustard. You can learn how to make it right here. So what's your favorite way to use mayo? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out my other vintage recipes. Thank you so much for joining me here at Apaulo Diner. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video.